Good evening. Welcome to our first, I guess I would call it a hybrid, our first in-person event of 2021. And we are live streaming this as well. So this is our Game Changers event. This is a flagship program of the conductor. So we appreciate all of you that are here. We appreciate you that are joining us on Facebook Live as well. And my name is Jeff Scandridge. I serve as the managing director of the conductor, and I'm joined by a number of our team members. There's Grace, and you have to raise your hand. Adam, and Miranda, and Jimmy, and did we get everybody? Okay. So thank you for being here. We're certainly glad. We're really glad to be doing this in person. It's like I said, it's been 18 months or so since we've had the opportunity to do that. We are, for those of you who are on Facebook Live, we are taking precautions, and some of us are having dinner here while we talk. Tonight we're joined by Marta Loyd. Marta is the CEO and Executive Director of the Windrock Institute. We appreciate you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Are you able to hear Marta okay? Give us a test there.
Test.
Yeah,
Test,
sounds
test.
good. Very good. All right. Well, Marta, what I'd like to maybe start with is have you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. So we'll get into Marta, the professional. So we'd like to know a little bit more about Marta, the person. So we like to call it your origin story. So tell us a little bit about how you came to be where you are today.
Okay. So I'm originally from Fort Smith. Grew up there. The middle child of three. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
I knew we were kindred spirits.
Are you a middle child?
I'm a middle child.
Yay.
In every
Okay.
every single sense of the word.
We will talk about that later.
Let me just ask you this question. I'll just describe my scenario and you say if it fits. So I have like 2 pages in the back of volume 3 of my brother's baby book. Okay.
That's
about right.
We are the same. Yeah. And honestly, growing up, I never knew being a middle child was even a thing. But it is a thing, and I think served me well and played a big role in who I am and, how I respond to things. I think as a middle child, you as long as you just kind of make decent grades and don't really get into trouble, you can kind of slide through and be overlooked, which is not always a bad thing. For me, that I always was and continued to kind of play the role of the peacemaker in the family and be the one to resolve differences and be the problem solver and, for whatever reason, kind of came to see that as my role. At the same time, this is really where I'm going with it. I guess, not that this was my parents' responsibility, but no one ever really pushed me to work hard or think about a career or, so I just always saw myself as being working a part-time job and staying home and raising a family, just like my mom did. My mom was a very talented musician, but she never worked outside the home. My dad was a physician, and he worked long hours. So fast forward, I did exactly that. Married. I went to school at University of Oklahoma for 2 years, and then 2 years of dental hygiene school at UAMS. Married at 23 and had 3 children by the time I was 31. And was a dental hygienist and worked as a dental hygienist for 15 years. And then was just not satisfied. To be honest, I felt like, I don't know, I just had some kind of fear that my life wasn't going to mean anything, or I wasn't going to have made a difference in some way. So I was anxious to do something meaningful. I took a job at, back then, West Ark College, which was a community college at Fort Smith, as a program coordinator, making $10 an hour. No benefits. But after I was there, and my job was to put together professional development for healthcare professionals and also supervision training for like banks and manufacturing industry and that sort of thing. But then after I'd been there for about a year, they asked me if I would put together a proposal to start a dental hygiene school. So I'd never taught a class, never, of course, written curriculum or done anything of the sort, but I thought, okay, I'll try it if you're going to give me a chance. And we were successful at starting a dental hygiene. The program is still going today, very strong, graduates, I don't know, 15 to 18 dental hygienists every year. So fast forward, what's interesting about it is I was pulling in, thinking about taking that program and actually having to defend it to the Department of Higher Education, and that happened on this campus.
Really? Wow.
Way back.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were and it was successful, they approved it, and as we were leaving this campus, my mentor asked me, did I want to be the director of the dental hygiene program, and I said, no, I really came to the college to get out of dental hygiene. And so she said right then, you come to work for me. She was vice chancellor for advancement. She said, I'd like for you to come to work for me as a development officer, and I'll teach you everything I know, and then one day you can take my place. Mm-hmm. And going back to the middle child thing, honestly, that was the first time anyone had ever, I think, seen that kind of potential in me, or that I had even seen it. But I recognized right here on this campus, I can do things, you know. And so from there, I ended up being the development officer, and then went on to be, she left way before I thought she would, and I could either sit and wait to see who my new boss would be, or try to do it myself. So I boldly wrote a 10-year plan and took it up to the chancellor, and he gave me a chance and hired me as vice chancellor for advancement and executive director of the foundation at UAFS.
And that was about when?
It was 2002, so it's the same year that Westart became University of Arkansas Fort Smith. Okay. So during that time, I, for 12 years, served in that role and had the opportunity to, sit on the leadership team. We didn't have, when we became a university, we didn't have bachelor's degrees, we didn't have student housing, we didn't have Greek life, intramural sports, anything that it takes to really be a university. And so I had the opportunity to help build all that. And the same with the foundation. It was a community called, we didn't have an alumni association, or they had $20 million in an endowment at the time. And, fast forward, when I left, they had over 80 million, now they have over 100 million, which is, it's really good for a school with that history that started out as a community college. So
absolutely.
I'm proud of that. And then I'll just say, during that time, I learned to love philanthropy, which really, really aligned with my values and principles. And, first when my mentor asked me to come to work in development, I said, no, I cannot ask for money, I can't do that. And she said, well, you're not asking for it for yourself. You're asking for it to help all these students who, you can really help so many people. And there's a lot of people, generous people out there who want to leave a legacy. And so anyway, I fell in love with philanthropy. I fell in love with the donors, the people who wanted to make a difference and give back. And then I always saw myself as a conduit between them and then the people who need the help. So the students and the faculty and just everything that it takes to, that a college campus needs to thrive. So I did that. We finished a major gifts campaign, and I felt that tug one more time, like, thinking I had something else to do. And I told my husband, and he was kind of sleuthing around on the internet and found the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute job, which just, it seemed like my skills were a good fit for what they were looking for at the time. And so, and it was also a job that was, to me, philanthropy in real life. So philanthropy living out. Winthrop Rockefeller, at his death, left the preponderance of his estate in a charitable trust. And that charitable trust benefited the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute and its work. So I loved the connection there to philanthropy. And I'll just say I worked harder to get that job probably than anything I've worked on in my life. And they gave me a chance. And I've been there now for 8 years.
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were at UAFS or West Ark, then UAFS, total for how long?
18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I gotta stay at the Institute for 10 more years, I guess.
There you go. And so you're married, so you have 3 kids,
Mhm.
okay?
I've been married to my husband Greg for 39 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren.
Very good,
So,
very good. So I want you referenced several times your mentor.
yes.
So I want to talk about the role of mentors
Yes.
in your life. You don't have to call names, but just talk a little bit about the importance of mentors from your perspective, because I have taken just in a very short period of time that mentors have been very important to you.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Mentors have been everything to me. In fact, I have a mentor sitting there in the audience. I just feel very fortunate to have had a number of people, which you can count on one hand, that took an interest in me and guided me, told me hard truths when I needed to hear them, pushed me out there to, stretch myself and do things that I didn't think was possible, gave me good feedback. Also, they set a good example. I learn a lot, we all do, from watching other people and how they navigate difficult situations, or how they take advantage of opportunities, or the values that they espouse and then live out. And so I have had the benefit of 3 or 4 very strong mentors. They knew, they agreed, actually. We talked about it. They agreed to mentor me, and that's a responsibility. And so I also try to do that myself. I have a lot of people around me that I take it very seriously to do all I can to help them reach their fullest potential and in everything that they want to do and achieve. So, yeah.
You described a couple of instances where you wrote successful plans. One was a program plan for the dental hygiene program, and then your 10-year plan for the UAFS Advancement Division. Can you talk a little bit about how you see planning, vision and planning, and the leader's role in that, and how your planning has led to demonstrable results?
Sure. So my experience has been that the actual act of planning, whether it's strategic planning, conversations, vision, trying to see the future, and actually contemplating it and talking about it with others is what makes it a reality. Far more than the end result of just the written plan itself, it's really the process. So the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute is currently in its final stages of our strategic plan 2025. And but in our minds, the people who have worked so hard to get it done, we've been working toward accomplishing that plan for a couple of years now, because of all of our conversations, hard conversations, decisions that we've had to make about how to allocate resources, where to put limited resources, how to hire people when we have vacancies. So I believe planning is everything, honestly. Execution is very important also, but if you've been at the table where the conversations are had, then those conversations inform your activities and decisions, I believe, before you even have a plan on
So
that.
what about the people who are not at the table, whom you have to get their buy-in as well? How do you go about doing that to get them bought into the plan?
Well, you invite them to have input as much as you can. I think you invite all of your stakeholders to have input into the plan before it's finished. And you listen. You can't just invite them there and then not take into account what they say, because they're bringing a unique perspective. But then after the plan is already written, I think there's a number of ways you can engage them or get buy-in, talking about certain aspects of it, asking them, their opinion, their feedback, what would they have done differently, what do they like about it, what's exciting to them about it. Also, what do they see as their role? How could you help accomplish, what parts of this plan could you help accomplish? We're actually have a board meeting next week, and that's what we're about to do with our board. This is not our plan, this is our plan. It's your plan, and what do you see as your role in it? So I think it's important for people to be able to see themselves in helping you to accomplish it in order for them to have buy-in into the plan.
So what do you see as the senior executive's role? It could be the CEO, it could be the executive director, or whatever the organization calls it. What's your role in the planning process?
Well, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but the leader's role is to, you have a vision, and so it's your responsibility to articulate the vision. And yet, for me anyway, just how my approach has been to make space for other people to contribute to the vision, or to shape it in some way that I didn't see as possible. And then, it's my responsibility to communicate the vision, not only to the people that are involved in the plan, but once it's produced, and to find the resources to make it, create opportunities for the people to accomplish the plan. I see as the leader's responsibility.
So you went on and you got a master's in, remind me that?
Higher education leadership.
Okay, and then a doctorate of educational leadership.
Yes.
Right. So what role did your graduate degrees play? Because again, kindred spirits, we have undergraduate degrees that are far cry from where we ended up in our lives. So talk about the role of education in general in helping you get to where you are today.
Okay. So my master's degree was, again, my mentor said, you have a future in higher education and you're going to need more education. And so I went back and earned my master's degree at age 40 when I had 3 small children at home and a full-time job, and that was a challenge. And honestly, the master's degree was a lot of practical things about higher education and student success, and so it was a more practical degree, I would say, working at the university. Then fast forward 10 years later, really, I guess 7 years by the time I was again encouraged to continue going to school. We had a brand new chancellor, and he said, I would like to see everyone on my leadership team have their doctorate, and I'd really like for you to be on my leadership team. So about a month later, I was enrolled in a doctorate program, and it was an executive type program, and it was also education, leadership, and policy analysis, which was probably the most important contribution to then my future. But I will just say about a doctorate, it's perseverance. And, you know, anybody who's working on one or has worked on one, you can be all but dissertation, which just means you've gone through the coursework, and then you don't write that dissertation, then you don't really have a doctorate. And so thankfully, again, another mentor said that means nothing, like you must finish. But when you come to that dissertation phase, you are all on your own. You don't have classmates, you don't have teachers, you don't have deadlines, you are on your own. So you have a committee, but still you set the pace. And so it taught me more than anything else in all of my education. It taught me perseverance, having reason, and why did I want to finish? She had me write them down. Write down your top 5 reasons why you want to finish and put them on big paper and put them everywhere. Everywhere you're going to be, that you can see those reasons why it's important to you to earn that doctorate. And I did it. And I was like the second person out of a cohort of 70 to defend my dissertation. I wanted to be done. Honestly, to be honest, and the reason is different for everyone, but one of the reasons why I wanted to be finished in a fast time frame, my dad had Alzheimer's, and I wanted him to see me graduate. And he came to my graduation, and he loved it, and I loved it.
Absolutely, I can see that for sure. So let's talk about your role at the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute now. Talk a little bit about the Institute and the mission of the Institute and your role in that mission.
Okay. So I'm really proud of, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is how the Institute has built a culture and become very focused, have a very focused mission during the time that I've been there. So our mission is to continue Winthrop Rockefeller's collaborative approach to creating transformational change. And I can break that down for you. So Winthrop Rockefeller, when he was in Arkansas, well, throughout his life, he had a unique approach to problem solving. He was a transformational governor and a transformational leader in Arkansas. So it was our job to perpetuate his legacy. Well, that's big. Like, how do you do that? Somebody that did everything that he did. How do you do that? So we studied his life and the things that he did, and we dug down and figured out kind of what the secret sauce was, and realized that it was really, it built on a lifetime life lessons that he learned from his parents and his family. So he was the grandson of John D. Rockefeller Sr., the founder of Standard Oil, and the wealthiest family, I guess, in the world at one time. And so, but Winthrop's approach is really a 3-pronged approach. So collaborative problem solving is the first thing. The coming to the table with the will to collaborate, the will to work with people, all different kinds of people to arrive at a solution. The second thing is diversity of viewpoint. So he was a strong believer, and we are too, that you can't solve a problem if you only have one side of the issue represented. You may think you have the solution, but I like to say, as soon as you walk out of the room, there's someone there that says, well, you didn't ask me, and they're going to stand in your way, and you didn't solve the problem. So we work very hard to bring diverse viewpoints to the room. And when you do that, you have to have really good, solid processes to help people feel, give them a safe space to state their truth and listen to others. So the third piece of that equation is respectful dialogue. So that doesn't mean just being nice to each other. It means listening, learning how the other person arrived at their viewpoint, feeling safe and having a structured way in which you can share your own ideas, and together you learn from each other, and then you can move forward with offering solutions. And that's what he did. Whenever he had Windrock Farms up on the mountain, he would bring, groups together around very, very difficult topics. He showed them incredible hospitality, which we still do. Take a lot of pride in the hospitality that we show people when they come to the mountain. We call it, we say we unburden you so that you can do the hard work that you came here to do. So today at the Institute, in fact, tonight, I'm here instead of there, but today we hosted a group of hybrids such as this talk, but we had about 25 people at the Institute and about 50 virtually that are working on incarceration. So we're looking at recidivism, reentry, and reunification with families and communities. And that is a tough, very complex, lots of issues around incarceration, lots of barriers to formerly incarcerated people being able to, become a healthy, active member of society. And so we're looking to break down those barriers. So we're bringing our formula, what we call the Rockefeller ethic, to bear on these problems.
And if you've not been to the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute, I can attest to the hospitality and the dining and cuisine and what have you, not to mention just the...
Don't go hungry.
You won't go hungry, and if you get an opportunity to participate in an event that's going to be there, you need to do that. So your role is as the executive director, CEO of the Institute. Talk about your leadership of that and kind of your staff and what your team looks like.
Okay. So we have 65 employees, and I have a senior team of 3 right now. So I have a chief strategy officer and a chief financial officer and myself, and then they have everybody else around them. So we have a hospitality, director of hospitality, director of communications and marketing, director of programs, director of development, maintenance. So we have 188 acres to take care of and historic buildings and facilities, which creates its own kind of set of challenges. And then we have, the programs department, which they convene programs like the one on incarceration I was telling you about. We've also done programs in rural health, education, lots of other sticky topics. And then we have an educational arm to our programs where we teach the tools. So we have a program called Beyond Civility, which is very popular for high school students, teaching them, it's okay to disagree, but tools for civility and not having to give in on your position, but how to communicate with people you disagree with and who disagree with you, and how to work together.
We probably all could use a little bit of that these days.
Yes, yeah, it's a very. I've been through the program, a couple of different times, and there are just a lot of tools that we can use in life, for sure. And then we have, we host conference groups, so corporate entities or communities that want to come to the Institute and use our facilities. We try, we have a conference application where the group has an opportunity to say, here's why we want to come to the Institute. So you can go to the Holiday Inn or DoubleTree or Marriott, I don't want to pick on any, but you can go to a conference center. Why do you need to come to the Institute? Why do we need to give you our limited space at our, discounted prices? And if you are coming to do work that is aligned with our mission, then that is a win-win for everyone, because people know when they come up there, why they're coming. They're not just coming to get away. We also do host conference groups that want to just, banks and what have you that just want to come up there and use the facilities. We do, but we try to be heavily weighted in what we call mission-aligned conference groups. And all that is if they're wanting to engage with us, learn a little bit about the governor, learn about, his impact and his approach to problem solving, his values, possibly utilize, we have a highly trained, skilled staff that can design meetings and guide you through facilitating your work. And the more you engage with the Institute, the more mission-aligned your group becomes. So we have kind of different tiers of ways that you can engage up there.
For our folks on Facebook Live and online, we'll be asking questions of Dr. Marta Loyd, who's the CEO and Executive Director of the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute. We'll be taking questions from the floor as well in a couple of moments. So if you have questions, you can enter those into the chat if you're on Zoom, or you can put those into the comments on Facebook Live, and we have folks in the room who will read those aloud. So thank you for that. We'll be getting to that in a couple of moments. You talked about the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute mission of creating, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, creating collaborative transformational change. I'd love to hear some of the transformational change initiatives that you've been involved in over the years through the Institute, of which you're most proud.
Okay. I will just say that transformational change comes in many different forms. Transformational change can be with an individual, with opening your mind to recognize that that you should be interested in other viewpoints and how how people think and why they believe that they do, and how to respect those. That's transformational. Some people just, before they go through some of this, they feel certain that they're right, that there's not another way to see things. So that's one way transformational change can occur. Another way transformational change can occur is systems. So we have systems in place in our communities and in our state and in our country that we don't even realize are holding us down or making it difficult in some way. So one of the things that I'm really proud of is our work in rural health. And a few years back, we had a doctor from UAMS. He was the head of the regional programs there. Dr. Mark Jansen was his name. And he approached me and just said, there are so many people in Arkansas who are working to improve access to rural health in rural communities, and yet they're not working together. None of them are working together. There's all these resources being put in it, but they're not talking to one another. Can you help us bring these groups together from all over the state and help them articulate, 2 or 3 actionable things that they can work on together? And so we did that. We brought people together from all aspects of healthcare, from the Hospital Association, Arkansas Department of Health, the community health workers, nonprofit organizations, on and on. So we had about 60 some odd people at the first Rural Health Summit. And they mapped out, all the challenges and where the gaps were. Then they, who of the people in attendance could actually knew someone or could fill this gap. And anyway, it's very complicated, but I'll just fast forward and say they ended up forming some working groups. And so they worked on these things outside of the big summit, and they would come back a couple of times a year. And in the end, they ended up forming the Rural Health Association of Arkansas. So they decided someone needs to wake up every day and think about and be focused on how we can keep these lines of communication between all these different entities that are working on the challenges of rural health, which is, non-emergent transportation, it's recruiting physicians to rural communities. That is a major challenge. We actually, to kind of dig further into that, we actually had a summit with students, medical students that were interested in going to small towns. And, you know, we went through a lot of work with them to say what would, you know, what's going to keep you from going to a small town, what would help you be able to go there. And it was great because then we took their feedback and we gave it to the communities and to the legislators and to the governor and to the medical school leaders. And so they said, you want these young professionals to go back to these small towns, here's what they're going to need. Quality education. They're looking for a quality of life for their family. You know, they want to be the small town doctor, but they've got this family too. Okay. And so, anyway,
very good.
We're proud of that.
Absolutely, you should be. That's fantastic. And I know of a number of initiatives that you guys have been involved in. Uncommon Communities is another one that I've had the privilege of participating in for a couple of years. You help rural communities around the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you want me to speak about that, but really just the Uncommon Communities, you know, the idea there is to help build a foundation of leadership in the communities. And we talk about leadership in communities as not your usual suspects. So it might not be, you know, necessarily the mayor or the bank president. We're looking for people that are, you know, willing to do the work and to talk about what's needed in the community. And we teach them the same skills that we're talking about applying to, you know, how to lead strategic planning, how to facilitate a community meeting, how to, you know, work through a difficult, how to overcome barriers and how to make a plan. We usually, you know, start them off by, you know, tasking them to work on a project together so that they can kind of start small. But that's been a fun program to be a part of. We've seen a lot of success from it.
Well, one word that's been used several times tonight, and I know you have a doctorate in educational leadership, but the word is leadership. So tell me your take on leadership. What do you think the key responsibilities, characteristics, behavior traits, what have you, what defines leadership to Marta?
So you when we talked before this, you suggested that I think of a nugget. Mm-hmm. And I know you want to say that to the end, but can I say that now?
Of course, sure.
Because that really answers that question.
Okay.
How do I see leadership? And, you know, I've thought a lot about this. I've studied leadership for many years, wanting to be the best leader I could be. What does that mean? And how do you do that? So, you know, as we mentioned, you study other leaders. But my nugget there is really leadership is not about a title. It's not about power or influence. It's not about padding your resume. In my mind, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about what you leave behind, how you develop people, the example that you set for others, the opportunities that you provide for others to reach their potential, the respect that you show people who work with you and around you. I believe in how you challenge them again, and how you appreciate them, and how you engage them. So that's a lot of nuggets there, but I will just say, it's been my experience, if you respect the people around you, and you try to help them become the best version of themselves, and you articulate the vision that you have for your organization, and you live out the values that you articulate, they're going to respect you and they're going to work hard for that vision.
So putting on your mentor hat and having a difficult conversation with maybe an aspiring leader or a young leader who's who does seem to place a lot of importance on recognition and resume padding and those kind of, what do you say to that person as a mentor when you're speaking into them?
I guess I would just say, Jeff, that it depends on the person, it depends on the conversation. I like to have a conversation with them, not in a threatening way, but to help guide them into articulating what they hope to accomplish, how they hope to, what legacy they want to leave, what they hope to, how they want other people to see them. What is guiding you in this way? And it is a challenge because people, you want to have ambition. You want to better yourself, and you want to, climb that ladder. Maybe I'm old school in the way I think about that, but I just think you're going to get there if you treat people in this way, and if you don't see that aspiration just for the sheer sake of climbing to the top, making more money, whatever it is. To me, it is so important for yourself as individuals to articulate your own personal values. What do you care about? And if you work in an organization and in a culture that aligns with your values, and then you are going to do well. And so I guess I just try to help people see that title isn't everything.
Yeah, great. And I'm going to ask this one for completely self-serving reasons, and then we're going to open up the floor. You have a young, career-minded professional who's really looking to grow their career.
Yes.
This is kind of the other side of the coin, and you may have already hit on it. What one piece of advice would you give them? They're not sure they're happy where they are. I know you took kind of a non-conventional route to get where I did as well. They're not sure if they're in the right role. Maybe it's the first 2 or 3 jobs that they've had, or 1 or 2 jobs out of college, but they're really trying to figure their way or find their way. What advice would you give them?
I think if they're really just trying to find their way, I would task them with thinking about what it is they want to, what do they like to do? What are your strengths? And there's all kinds of ways you can strength finder and all those things that you can find your strengths. What are you good at? What are you happiest doing? And then figure out where you can find that kind of a job. And also, I would just say, make sure that interviews work 2 ways. When you're interviewing to work in an organization, I believe you need to respect the people that you're going to work for. Again, I keep talking about values, but that all needs to be aligned. If not, then it's not going to be a good fit. You're not going to be able to make, progress as you wanted to. So I guess just be clear what you're looking for. Be clear where you're happy and what you're good at, and what kind of effort you're willing to put forth. If I have somebody who, even if they're not sure, I love to let people, encourage them to participate in leadership. Arkansas leadership, I know Conway has a leadership program. We're putting someone through Arkansas Business Leadership Academy right now. So we really try to give people exposure to other people like them that are also aspirational, and most of those programs give you an opportunity for self-reflection. And so I think it's a journey. Honestly, whenever I was at the university, I learned, and I think there's data around this now, that people graduating from college today will change careers 5 times. Careers, not jobs, careers. And I really didn't believe that. I was like, where'd you get that? But that's what I've done. And so it's true. If you stay in the workforce long enough and you just
It's not like our parents who went to work at a good company and stayed 50 years,
That's right.
45 years. It is.
Whether it's a company or whether it's just literally a change in your role. I mean, you might start in one role. Let's take dental hygiene, program coordinator for,
Right.
and then development officer, and then, working in philanthropy, and then, leadership. It's just, it's an evolution.
It is.
I think, the other thing I would say to that young person is take advantage of opportunities. Sometimes they're scary. Sometimes you have to leave a job and go to another job or move to a new town. But if it's an opportunity that is aligned with, your skills and your values and where you want to go in life, then step out.
I'm sure you get the same question that I get is, how did you get from being a respiratory therapist to being where you are today, or a dental hygienist? And I tell people that when you look at it on a resume, it seems like a revolution, but it really was an evolution.
Yes,
So,
and it still is. I mean, life is a journey.
Absolutely.
It's not a destination. You're always looking for, what you're going to do next.
well, let's open up the floor for some questions. If we have any here in the room, we'll start there, and then if we have some coming in from our chat online audiences, we'll take those as well. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Loyd?
Selfishly, I'll go first. Dr. Loyd, I actually have to step out in a few minutes to go get my daughter to watch her cheer at the junior high football game. So thank you for your transparency and vulnerability. When you talked about that, the lack of the feeling that your life would have meaning and accomplish something, that time period between being a dental hygienist and being in development and going into development, what took place in that time period so now you feel like that you're on that path of meaningfulness, and kind of what were your steps to make sure that you're in the right direction?
Thank you. That's a really good question. I think that when I was able to actually start that dental hygiene program, I gained the confidence that I could do something that felt beyond my reach. And I felt like when I was able to get that dental hygiene program off the ground, I did not do it by myself, but I did lead the effort. It was the first thing I had ever really led. And honestly, they had tried to start a dental hygiene program just 3 years prior at the same school and failed. It didn't get off the ground for lots of reasons. And so I think just trying something that seemed really hard, and I was very unsure that I could do it. But I had people that believed in me, and so I think that's what I felt like once I got that started, that in and of itself was going to make a difference. But it whetted my taste buds, and I wanted more, and so I kept after it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else? Okay.
You mentioned culture a couple of times. Can you share a little bit about the culture transformation that you guys have seen at Winthrop Rockefeller and the culture there, kind of the journey that you've taken?
For those online, if you can't hear, the question was about culture.
So she asked about the transformation in the culture, and I love that you put it that way, because that is something I'm really proud of. I think whenever I came to the Institute, and it wasn't just me, but the people that, I then hired and the folks that are there now, the culture was to each his own. Every man for himself, we're all here, we got a job, but they weren't really rowing in the same direction. They really didn't know where they were rowing. And so culture, we articulated core values for the Institute, and we hire by them, we evaluate our employees by them, we recognize employees around their core values, and we, for example, they nominate each other for quarterly core value awards if they're caught living out a core value. So we have 5 of them. believe the mission. If you work at the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute or anywhere, it's important that you believe in the work. And so that's our first one. Focus on we, not me is just about teamwork and what you can do to help other people instead of just working on yourself and your resume. See the possibilities. This one came out of, the Institute has been there since 2005, but the facilities, a lot of them were built in the 50s when Winthrop Rockefeller was there. And so seeing the possibilities is walking past things that have been there for, 20, 30 years and saying, I can think of a way to do that better, or I bet I can. You don't just have to accept the way things are. So see the possibilities is really a big thing. Have fun is one that's really important, and I'm thinking about encouraging us to rephrase that because I feel like it should be take joy in your work, find joy in your work. But the other one is do the right thing, so even when no one's looking. And so our culture is centered around those core values, and if people don't align with those, they're not happy at the Institute, and they move on.
There you go. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Can you tell us one thing you admire about Rockefeller and why?
Of course. One thing I admire,
Just one.
oh my goodness. I admire Winthrop Rockefeller and his unique ability to respect other people. Respect. People from all walks of life. He was a very wealthy man and grew up wealthy, and he could have been that persona, but he wasn't. He was a man of the people. And I believe because of that unique character trait that really he learned from his mother, he was able to accomplish so much more that was, transformational for the state, for everything that he was involved in was because people genuinely felt he respected them. They didn't feel belittled or less than because of who he was. He was real to them, and I admire that about him.
Well, Marta, I'm going to throw you a curveball and give you one. Since you took the nugget question
Okay.
earlier, I'm going to go ahead and give you a final question tonight. Tell us about one career or one workplace, it doesn't have to be workplace, one failure that Marta experienced that was transformational on you because of the learning that it created.
Okay. I'm going to say this is a failure of not just one specific experience, but during the time after I got that taste of starting the dental hygiene school and then just continually wanting more and more, especially whenever I was at the university and working on my doctorate, leading a campaign. It was so fun, so much fun working in that environment. I became a certified workaholic. Certified. When I say that, I'm talking about I was that person. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I would go to work, take my kids to school, work all day, leave work, go to their baseball, football games, volleyball, whatever, band concerts, and go back to work. I would work until 10 or 11 o'clock at night and just couldn't, you know, I know now, you never get it all done. You can never get it all done. There's gonna continue to be more and more, especially if you're willing to do that. I remember the chancellor walking out one night, he worked like that, and he threw pebbles at my window, and he said, this was at like 10 o'clock, and he said, you only working half a day? I'll never forget it. And, mercifully, I had a terrible car accident where I hit an 18-wheeler head-on at 4:30 in the morning one day, driving to the airport to go to a conference after I'd been up late at a fundraising event the night before. Anyway, I got out of my car without a scratch. My car was like, couldn't recognize it as a car. It was just like a bunch of metal. And I was in a Toyota Camry. And, but that day, so then I was just frozen for about 2 weeks. I couldn't go anywhere. So I had the guilt of survivorship, and I don't know. I didn't know what my purpose was. But the one thing I learned from that experience is to get a handle on my workaholic tendencies. And I completely switched my focus to other priorities. I got some hobbies. I bought a camera and learned photography. I bought a bicycle, some hiking shoes, and I scheduled trips. I made a point to, have dates with friends and do, social things. And I learned that you can still be an effective leader and take care of yourself and have a life. And so that was my failure.
Very good. Very,
I
very.
believe in failing forward. And
Absolutely.
so I have learned from that.
You know, they say that when you're on your deathbed, you're probably not going to say, man, I wish I'd spent more time at work. And then the other one that I like is, have you ever seen a hearse pulling a U-Haul? You never see a hearse? That's right, never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. Well, this has been another episode, I guess we would call it, of the Game Changers, one of the flagship events of the Conductor. We appreciate very much having Dr. Marta Loyd with us, CEO and Executive Director of the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute. Marta, thank you for being a game changer yourself, and thank you for the leadership that leads the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute to being a game changer for our state and region as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, we appreciate you for being here. Check out other events that the Conductor has at arconductor.org, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and all those other social media channels that I probably don't participate in, other than Facebook and LinkedIn. So check us out, arconductor.org. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So,
Where does she live?